Jim.
Yeah.
Your healthcare tutorial is now over. Better than I can do. Any other questions?
Well, is this an impediment to ending the session?
The idea that at the 11th hour, all of a sudden, our caucus it's a shock that our caucus is opposed to expanding Obamacare to be the first Midwestern state to expand Obamacare. I think more than anything shows how much the majority hasn't been listening to us all session. We've been pretty clear, the folks up here in our healthcare group. I think Jim explained it a heck of a lot more succinctly and accurately than I've heard all session long. So I don't know why it's a shock now, but we've been very clear on this. The he said, she said, game playing or finger pointing. Again, as I was driving in today looking at t-ball games and soccer matches and people out mowing their lawn, they don't care who wins or loses or it's your fault or you're to blame. The speaker can't get the job done. The governor's up fishing. Really? That's where we're at? Get your job done. Don't take any more out of the business owners that are Jim's residents. Don't make it hard to do business in the state, and then get your job done on time. Pretty clear, pretty simple. If you were to go watch some of these folks that were out enjoying a beautiful spring day in Minnesota, probably say the exact same thing.
So let's try it again. Does this make it harder to reach a deal in this session?
Well, from our standpoint, we've said all along that we were against the expansion. When it comes to ratifying the unallotments and it comes to the education, that's not been a problem. The problem has been whether they're permanent or temporary. I would have to say you'd have to ask the other side of the aisle, because this just came up earlier this week. We had a tax increase on the table. That went down. Now we're back to another object that supposedly is the impediment to the session. Let's keep the main thing. Balance the budget. Don't add to the taxpayers' liability, and then don't make it hard to do business in the state. Get your job done and get out.
Representative D, you've been in talks with the governor and the Democrats on this issue. Is there any middle ground here, or just one way or no way?
Well, I think that we've been very open to consistently to provide better care for low-income Minnesotans. We continue to be very supportive of that. We want to find ways to find better care for low-income Minnesotans, and we want to do that moving forward. I think what the new thing here is that it's Obamacare or nowhere, that this is a new impediment, that unless we adopt federal Obamacare, we can't get out of session. And this is for a group of people, the average person out there is looking in and saying, these people already have coverage. Minnesota is a great state because we do cover low-income Minnesotans. We're going to cover them with something else, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, a federal program. And just because one caucus wants to switch them into a federalized program, that's going to blow up the end of session or to delay things, I think is unnecessary. I think it's unhelpful. I think that we can probably find areas of common ground to provide better care for low-income Minnesotans without the federal care or no deal. So I think that's the real impediment, and I think that perhaps Representative Surdich was maybe looking at the other side of the coin a little bit earlier in his comments. We understand that those things have to happen, but it does make things more difficult. We don't have very much time to find an agreement, but we remain committed to doing so, and we'll continue to work to do so with all four caucuses.
Does this have to be settled before an overall deal can be reached, probably for Leader Zellers?
Sure. Well, again, when we just started these discussions about end of session, what the deal would be, was to balance the budget. The tax increase came in later on. Now this is coming in. The main thing all along was ratifying or the unallotments, the education delay, and then putting in some contingency for the $408. So I think that has been our main goal along. This has just kind of come in the last minute or the last few hours here. So I think the main thing is to balance the budget and get done on time, and let some of the reforms that Representative Dean and Murphy spent a great deal, months of time working on. This GAMC is one of the fix or the new version, the CCOs, nation-leading reform. Let's let it work for more than 3 or 4 weeks. Let's let it do what it was intended to do, which is to treat the patient and not the episode.
So is your advice skip this and go on to other budget matters?
That's my advice, but I'm also one of 47, so I can only offer my advice and hope.
Well, and I think we also have to make sure that we're seeing negotiations in good faith. In the past couple
positioning our state for economic recovery in a way that allows us to thrive going forward. And so, when we look at the end of session, the goal should be to end session, but it should be to end session in a way that sets Minnesota up for prosperity going forward.
Representative Broad, where has your caucus moved in the last few days? I mean, it seems like the talks have been in the same spot, and you're talking about moving forward in good faith. Where have you guys moved toward to get a position?
Well, we have always, Brian, we have always brought forward new ideas and new reforms. And if we want to serve more people in healthcare, we have brought forward a number of ways that we can actually serve people, more people, in a way that makes more sense and in a way that costs less. When you look at the big reforms that were done this year, the activities, the two big bills that were done this year were done when House Republicans were sitting at the table, really moving forward the result. The GAMC is a great example of where we actually serve people better at a lower cost, and that was when we had caucus members right at the table doing those negotiations. The second bill that we saw get done this year happened because House Republicans were sitting at the table helping with those negotiations, and that's the tax bill. The tax bill which set up the angel investor and the research and development credits for Minnesota. That was a good bill. It moved us forward. And I think it shows that when House Republicans are engaged, when we are brought in a real way to solve problems, we certainly can do that. And I think Representative Dean has been very active in bringing forward new ideas to the table in the last day, last hours, and the last minutes.
So what do you guys want out of the end of the session? Just a budget?
Like a budget that doesn't bankrupt the state. We'd like a budget that actually has some permanent reductions that allow us to make some strong decisions going forward. And we'd like a budget that has some substantive reform to it so that we are able to actually operate as a state moving forward. The math doesn't work anymore. We cannot continue to operate the way we always have been, plus a little bit more. We've got to start changing substantively, and the permanent cuts are one step in the right direction toward reform.
I would say, Baird, it was three simple things. You don't ask any more from the taxpayers of the state of Minnesota. You don't make it harder to do business in the state of Minnesota, and you get done on time. Those are the three things that we've asked for all along. We've offered many times, again, to you guys many times. We've got a set of guidelines in place so the majority party can shut off debate when we offer amendments. To say that we haven't offered solutions or something new here at the session then denies the, move the previous question discussion that we've had here several times. Unfortunately, it's an ugly process, but if you want our ideas, let us offer them, or at least vote on them. We'll go back to the state government finance bill. 19 different ideas we were offering. 10 of them weren't even voted on. They were ruled non-germane. The others were voted down. One, the zero-based budgeting was accepted and dropped in conference committee without even discussion. So it's a little late in the game to say, where's your ideas? What do you want? It's time to get the job done. Balance the budget. Don't do more to harm business or families in Minnesota, and be done by midnight tonight or